Hello everyone, welcome to War Analysis channel. In this video, I will focus on the Luhansk region and, in particular, the northern part of the region. Here, the Ukrainians started cutting off the roads that allowed the Russians to receive supplies from Terni safely, and in response, the Russians tried to secure another road and therefore launched an attack towards Devorichna. The task turned out to be much harder than they expected. They faced high resistance and were forced to divert their efforts to solve the initial problem. They launched an attack towards Sinkivka to hit the Ukrainians in the back, only to run in the minefields that the Ukrainians prepared for them in advance. But before we get into it, I'd really appreciate if you left a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Anyways, let's go. Last time I showed you how the Ukrainians have cut off the Russian supply road to Vilshana. In the aftermath of their latest wave of attacks in this region, the Ukrainians have established partial control of this big ravine. The supply road from Terni is only 1 kilometer away from the dense tree belt areas that the Ukrainians are now controlling, meaning that the Ukrainians have established total fire control over the road and can destroy any convoy that is moving through this area. To supply Vilshana somehow, the Russians decided to use the route from Tavolzhanka, but there was one big problem: by controlling Horebivka, the Ukrainians could easily destroy anything that moved in this area as well. The Russians only had several days to solve this issue, otherwise, Vilshana would fall, so they launched several attacks at once and assaulted Horebivka, Sinkivka, and Devorichna. Unlike the latter two, Horebivka is not a convenient place to hold the defense, so the Ukrainians immediately moved back and started holding this line. In the short term, this has allowed the Russians to establish a connection between Terni and Vilshana through Tavolzhanka. However, good news for the Russians ended on the first day. They have been trying to push the Ukrainians out of Sinkivka and Devorichna for 3 days in a row with no success. The Ukrainians in Sinkivka seem to be leveraging the wide railway that is splitting the Forstal area, which allows them to hold secure positions in the trees while conveniently being supplied from the town 200 meters behind them. The Ukrainians in Devorichna just overall have a very strong position. Devorichna is a twin of Tavolzhanka. As you remember, the Ukrainians had struggled for a long time to take Tavolzhanka from Devorichna. Now the Russians are facing exactly the same situation. That is why the Russians decided to change their plan and attack Sinkivka from Horebivka. Since the Ukrainians are moving in the direction of Pershorovniv, hitting them here is basically hitting them in the back. A successful assault of Sinkivka would open access to the logistical heart of the Kupiansk offensive operation. And undermining this offensive operation would, of course, allow them to solve all the problems that they are dealing with in Vilshana and Pershorovniv. Unfortunately for the Russians, this attack was unsuccessful. It turned out the Ukrainians completely mined the approaches to Sinkivka. This also explains why the Ukrainians still have not entered Lyman Pershi and why it was considered a gray zone for so long. The Ukrainians mined this area because they didn't need to move there anyways. They already decided that instead of attacking the Tavolzhanka group in front, they would do it from the flank or even the rear. Overall, the Russian counterattack went completely wrong. They failed to use the element of surprise effectively and push the Ukrainians from the Oskil River's eastern bank, and they ran into mines by trying to conduct a flank attack towards Sinkivka. There are no more shortcuts left, so the Russians will either have to solve their logistical issues with brute force and high losses or retreat several kilometers back and establish a defense on the more reliable positions. If you think that my coverage of the situation in Ukraine is useful, you can support it by making a purchase in my online store. Here you can find a lot of products with Ukrainian symbols, such as tumblers with official Ukrainian military emblems. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.